target on my back. I think I could probably sell thousands of t-shirts.
Get a t-shirt that says, I dodged the bullet.
Oh! I like that. I like that.
I'll make them up.
All right, we've got George Dyer, our Vice President and Membership Chair, graciously volunteered to do a presentation on the Winchester Model 1894/94. So George, over to you, sir.
I think I do it right, Andrew. Andrew's giving me the thumbs up. I've never done a presentation here. I don't know how to work this stuff. Hopefully it works out right. Another thing, I don't know if you can see, but there's a step back here, and I'll probably be coming back and forth, so I'll probably trip at least once or twice. If you all laugh at me, that's fine.
You recorded.
Oh yeah, that's right. Don't get a picture of me falling down, Jack. This presentation is on the history and evolution of the Winchester Model 1894, which later became the 94. For materials, my source books, the George Mattis book on the left, that covers all the Winchester different long gun models. It's supposed to be the Bible. George Mattis was supposedly the one who knew the most about these Winchesters. My favorite book is the Winchester Model 94 book. All kinds of good details in here. Also, I was lucky enough to get a bunch of sales manuals from way back in the day. I was going through them and verifying as much as I could details that are now in these books. And some of the things in old sales manuals are really interesting compared to the information that people now believe is correct concerning the 94s. Other information sources, I belong to WACA, Winchester Arms Collectors, so I talked to other members about the 94s, and some of those guys really know their stuff. I run into them. I met some of the guys at VGCA meeting and also the Las Vegas Antique Arms Show, and that's where I get a lot of my information. Also dealers at gun shows, not so much here, but out west. Those gun shows, a lot of those dealers are really well versed in the Winchester 94s, as well as other Winchester models. Internet sources, gun broker. I have my gun broker account set so that every morning I get a list of all of the 94s that have been listed. And I look at all of them, look at the pictures, because what a lot of dealers put, they miss a lot of detail sometime on the guns. Sometimes they put things in that are not correct, but a lot of times it's very interesting what they put in there. When I go to the gun shows, once again, especially at West, I physically look at as many different guns as possible to try to see if the information I have in my head matches what's really on some of these guns. All the information I'm going to present will take them from as reliable source as possible. With the 94s, there was only 3 basic models, but there's a whole bunch of different special order variations. Winchester, back then, they were willing to accommodate pretty much any special order. If you bought a gun a certain way and had enough money to pay for it, they were more than happy to build the gun exactly like you wanted it. Other thing, it's hard to verify a lot of these. The records from 1906 up until 1940 were destroyed in a fire. So when you find one with special order features on it and try to get the letter to verify that your gun did leave the factory with those special order features, nope. You might be able to get a letter saying what year the gun was shipped, but there will be no details. And something else I've noticed about the letters from back when they still kept the guns, sometimes the letters don't match exactly what I physically see on the guns. I think some of the records might not have been kept exactly right. All the records, of course, were kept by hand. So even with the letters, it might be a good idea to take it all with a grain of salt. The progression of the Winchester lever actions. First, there was, of course, the Volcanic and Henry. They were okay. They had some issues. They're kind of a new thing. Model 73. That was a pistol caliber lever action rifle. Winchester was very successful with that model. Then they made the Centennial model, 1876. Big, powerful cartridges, but the linkages and other things inside the action did not hold up very well under all the pressure. Model 1885, John Moses Browning developed a single-shot lever-action gun. He and his son made about 500 of them. He then sold the patent to Winchester. Winchester turned it into their Model 1885. And it's an interesting gun because there are a whole bunch of different calibers. There are a lot of collectors who specialize only in the 1885s. Single shot, so people want something else. They made the 1886. Another big caliber, 45, 70, and that type of thing. The only problem with it was a big, heavy gun, hard to carry around. So, and now John Moses Browning did develop the 1886. He actually made a model of it out of wood and presented that to Winchester. And they said, let's roll with it. The Model 1892, once again a Browning design. They pretty much took 1886, shrunk it down, went back to the 1873 pistol caliber. The Model 1894, which is what I'm supposed to be talking about. Something was needed between the big 86 and the 92 in pistol caliber. So they went to Mr. Browning again. He went to work on a design. He applied for the patent once he had it all worked out in January of 94. 7 months later, he was granted the patent. Winchester was ready to roll with this. It took 7 months to get the patent. It only took Winchester 2 months to start producing the guns once the patent was approved. It was designed around the smokeless cartridge, the 3240 and 3855. A couple years later, the 3030 was introduced. I think the 3030 would have come out sooner, but there were some problems with the cartridge itself, not with the guns. But the design changes included a new breech block and also a plunger safety. Now here, when you close it up, the breech block would rise to enclose the whole back of the breech. These were not pistol caliber, these were rifle calibers. And also the smokeless, which have more pressure. But that breech block was strong enough to hold up against the pressure. And also, for any of y'all that have ever shot these, you'll recognize the little plunger thing back here. It's a safety. If you don't close the action all the way, the gun will not fire. I know several times I've been shooting mine, take my time, line up the perfect shot, come back on the trigger and nothing, because I'm not holding it tight enough. Has that ever happened to anybody else, or was it just me? Okay, I figured it wasn't just me. Three basic models of the pre-64, 94. They did make a musket version, fully stocked, military type. I don't know much about these. They were mostly just trial rifles. They came 26, 28, and 30-inch barrels, and for some reason had the carbine butt plate instead of the rifle butt plate. That's all I know about it. Never seen one actually. The rifle, standard length was 26 inches, but they could be special ordered to different lengths. They came in solid frame or takedown. And I'm sure most of you know this, but what I mean by standard frame and takedown, the standard frame, just a solid gun. Takedown, the gun could be taken in half. Carbines are the most common, standard and trapper carbines. And also the rifles, the barrels, most of them octagon. Octagon to round, the ratio was 9 octagon to every 1 round barrel made. Carbines, they were all round barrels. The metal finishing. First, Winchester started out with what they call ordnance steel. They quickly switched to nickel steel. I don't know how much you can tell by the picture, but if you've seen a bunch of the old Winchesters, the receiver, a lot of times the butt plate, there will be almost no finish left on it, but the barrel and magazine will have a whole lot of gluing left. When they went to the nickel steel, the bluing process was fine, but the nickel would not hold the finish. If you were to find one of these guns, still in the box, untouched, it would probably not have finish on the receiver. It was called flaking. It was a big problem they had. Winchester had what they called a browning room. Some guns were finished with a brown finish. That's pretty much rare. Most of the bluing process was done by outside contractors. The outside contractors had employees. The employees had their own methods of bluing. There were 3 basic methods, but everybody had their own little variation to it. Because of the different methods and different contractors, there were some variations in the colors of the Winchesters. Now, special order guns, as well as the regular guns, the old guns, they took a lot of pride in it, and Winchester had very high standards. So the metal, of course, was finished as good as possible, and also the wood got a whole lot of really good finishing on it. Nothing left Winchester that was halfway. A few of them were case hardened. Haven't seen very many of those, and by now the case hardening is probably pretty much faded out on. Oh yeah, that is this gun right here. I don't know how much you can tell. Y'all can look at it later. The barrel is a brownish color. The rest of it is a more traditional blue color. I don't know why. I don't know if it was originally supposed to be a brown barrel. Jim and I were discussing it earlier. This gun's kind of interesting. It's the rifle, full size, takedown. I got it at an auction fairly cheap because other people were kind of worried about the colors. Was it refinished? Why was it like that? I thought it was kind of cool looking, so I got it. And once I got home, I found out another interesting thing on this gun, which we'll get back to in a bit. The very early magazine tubes. This is the early design over here. It looks like a slot for a screwdriver. Most people who bought them thought it was a slot for a screwdriver. It's not a slot for a screwdriver. You'll find a lot of these guns where that's all buggered up looking because people were trying to unscrew it. It was never made to be screwed in or screwed on or unscrewed or anything. So they quickly changed to this design right here. Calibers. Now keep separating between the pre-1964 Winchesters and the post-1964, and there's a good reason for that. Initially, they were only available in 32-30 and 38-55. A couple of years later, they came in with the 25-35 and the 30 WCF, which stands for 30 Winchester Centerfire, which mostly now we call the 30-30 Winchester. 1902-03, they introduced the 32 Special. There were also some other calibers made which were not cataloged. Like I said earlier, if you had the money, Winchester would make you the gun. A few years ago at the Antique Gun Show in Las Vegas, I met a guy who was doing a display of 94s. He had a 94. I can't remember the caliber, but it was the only known 94 in that one caliber. The rifles. Barrel length, 26-inch standard, could be anywhere between 15 and 36-inch special ordered. Most of the sizes were in even numbers. It's really rare to find anything 25 or 27 inches. Magazine tubes. Full length was standard, with one possible exception, which I'm going to get to in a minute. You could also order half, 2/3, or 3/4. The numbers half, 2/3, and 3/4 are a little bit ambiguous because it depends on the caliber and the barrel length. That's sort of the way they're separated. The stocks. Standard was the straight uncheckered stocks. They could also be ordered with the pistol grip and checkered pistol grip. Some of the books refer to those as a sporting rifle and deluxe sporting rifle. Butt plates. Rifle had a standard butt plate. I've got a picture of it here in a minute. But you could order a rifle with the carbine style butt plate, a shotgun style butt plate, a semi-shotgun, and also the Swiss Schützen. Am I saying that right, Mark? Schützen, is that the one?
Yeah.
The one with the funny prongs. you could order the rifle with one of those butt plates. So if you see old Winchester with one of those butt plates on it, don't assume that somebody just recently put on it. Might have left the factory that way. Sights. You could order a wide variety of both front and rear sights. If you ordered one of those flex rear sight peep sights that pops up, most of the time the regular sight here would be deleted, and they would put a blank in there to cover the groove where this would have gone. For an extra $1, you could order it where that was not there. The rifle was all one part. The barrel would be made without the little cutout for the rear sight to go in. Haven't seen many of them though. I mean, it cost an extra $1 back in the day. So. Other options. Swivel slings, sling swivels, a mat barrel, all kinds of engraving was available. Winchester had their standard engraving types, which you could order. You could also order engraving in $10 increments, anywhere from $10 up to $100. You could order engraving if you wanted to give it as a presentation, like I saw one that sold, it was to a Dr. So-and-so from the people of Kansas City or someplace like that. So they were engraved. The rifles were discontinued in the mid-1930s. That one is this one here. I bought this one because pistol grip, the barrel is half octagon, half round. The half octagon, half round could be ordered. I've been told by some of the old timers and Winchester collectors that was done to reduce the weight. Earlier I said that the standard magazine tube was full size. Anything else was special order? Some of those old guys told me on these, since they were trying to reduce weight, the standard magazine tube was actually the half tube. That's what I've been told. I have not read it anywhere. And some people have asked me why people would want a short magazine. If you read up on it, a lot of it was because it was considered more aesthetically pleasing. People back in the teens and 20s thought guns looked better with the short magazine. Which, personal preference, I guess. Butt stocks, shotgun, rifle, carbine, same thing over here. The rifle is more of a rounded, and at the top it's a sharp edge. On the carbines, it's curved up here. Rifle, sharp up here. But don't forget, people could order any kind of a buttstock they wanted. So if you run across a gun that's a rifle but has a carbine buttstock on it, or a shotgun, not buttstock but butt plate, it doesn't mean that somebody has altered the gun. It could have been a special order. The basic model 1894. 26-inch octagon barrel. Here we go. Nope. 26-inch octagon barrel, 38.55 caliber. This one's 1896 production, second year. Solid frame, not takedown, and the rifle style butt plate. Got this from one of our members. Very nice gun, like I say, second year, so it's antique. That would have been the standard rifle back then. This gets kind of interesting. We changed from the 1894 to 94 model designation. Reference material I have says the change happened from 950,000 serial number to 1.1. Okay, we're back to my gun with the funny colors. This one is 900, 30,000 serial range marked model 94, not 1894. So to me, the documentation should say in the 930,000 serial range instead of 950. That's what I think. More than one die was being used. So the 94s and 1894s will be intermingled in that 1 million serial range. The change was for both the rifles and the carbines. Most common belief, the change was a marketing, Winchester marketing thing. Some people think that a die was made wrong, made model 94 instead of 1894. Winchester mistakenly used it. By the time they realized the mistake, they liked it better and kept going with it. A lot of people say Winchester would not make a mistake like that. Well, I don't know how well you can see this. This is one of my guns, patent date of August 21st, 1894, which is correct. Here's one of my Winchester carbines, patented August 14th, 1894. They put the wrong patent date on some of the guns. It's somewhere 70 or 100 carbines with the wrong patent date, and about 40 of the rifles got the wrong patent date. So yeah, Winchester did make some mistakes. There were two sibling models of the 1894. The first one, Model 55. Production began in 24. First variation, 24-inch barrel, short magazine, takedown, 30-30 caliber. The first one was in its own serial number range. It went up to about 2,000 or 3,000. They weren't selling very good, so they made a second variation. They kept the gun exactly the same, but they started using the same serial numbers, well, not the serial numbers, but putting them in the same range as the 94s that they were producing. The third variation was a solid frame, not takedown, and other calibers were introduced. Nobody knows how many of these were made because the serial numbers are all intermingled. This one I bought in Las Vegas. Oh, here's something else interesting. On the Model 55, okay, sales manual from 1938 says it was discontinued 1933. This is a catalog from 1934. That gun is still listed as a cataloged item. So it was discontinued, but it was still in the catalog a year later. That could be kind of confusing to some people who are trying to actually document everything with Winchester. But from what I've read, they kept selling these from parts on hand, and if somebody really wanted one, you could still get one up until around 1940. This one, I got a little interesting story with this one. I wanted a 55 for this presentation. Found this one at the gun show in Vegas. Yep, this is it. Y'all probably know Tim Prince. Of course, he was there. He had told me he would bring my guns back for me, which is great. But I'm not going to be seeing him until the Baltimore show. And Tim's a VGCA member. He owns, I forget the name of his company. Oh, College Hill Arsenal. He's always at Chantilly show, but a great guy. Going to bring the guns back for me. But I wouldn't be able to get it until after this presentation. And these are, he had a ton of guns out there. So I had two choices, not have this gun, or go to Walmart, get a hard case, bring the gun back on the airplane myself, but I had a whole bunch of other stuff to bring back. So I didn't really feel like dragging this gun all through there. And I've always liked buying the takedowns because they're special orders, they're different. And when I see a takedown, somebody ordered it. So I look at what other special features might be on it. As Rick said earlier, he was there with his foot locker. He told me he had extra room in his foot locker. I could put my stuff in there. It would be back the following week to Pennsylvania, and then to Rick's house I could just pick it up from Rick. this gun's too long to fit in the foot locker. And that's when I remembered it's a takedown. So I actually unscrewed it, took it apart, it fit right in Rick's foot locker. Rick brought my gun home, well, got my gun home for me and opened it, courtesy of 4P Auctions.
Is that what was in that black sock?
Yep, the two-piece thing, that was my gun in two.
Have you shot it yet?
No, not yet. So the takedown, a lot of people bought takedowns, but that was back in the time where you could take the gun apart, put it in your suitcase, carry it on the airplane or wherever. It was a whole lot easier transporting guns back then than it is.
On trains.
Yeah, on trains. Yeah, instead of having to carry a gun. And when I had to do that, I realized the total utility of a takedown gun. Now I have a higher appreciation of it. Model 64. Where'd my 64 go? Right here. This was supposed to replace the Model 94. I don't know a whole lot about the 64, but I'll tell you what I get. They were in the same serial range as the 94s. This same serial range thing gets confusing because nobody knows exactly how many 94s were made because you've got the 55 and the 64s in there and the same for the 55 and 64s. Since all of them are lumped together in the same serial numbers, nobody knows, and the factory records were destroyed, nobody knows how many were made. They were produced concurrently with the 94 and 55. The receivers on all three guns was basically the same. Some parts might be intermingled on the different guns. You might get a 64 with a couple of 94 parts on it. It depends on how they were being assembled. It also introduced a 219 zipper caliber, which was basically a neck-down 25-35. Is that right, Frank?
Not sure.
I think so, 25-35. They necked it down, put a 22 caliber projectile in there. Varmint gun. It didn't sell extremely well. The standard model, this is the standard model. Smooth. They made a checkered model, called it a deer rifle. How checkering will help you deer hunt, I don't know, but it helped Winchester sell guns. They were initially dropped in 1956-57. They were reintroduced in 72-ish, but it was a post-64 manufacturing thing, so once again they didn't sell very well. Total production is estimated at 750 to 100,000. And that's it. You can see it just marked Model 64. They did have a different forearm on them. Three basic styles. The skinny, medium, and fat. This one's kind of a medium. There was also a fatter forearm. You can get those however you want. When I first started collecting and getting more into guns, one of my questions was, what's the difference between a carbine and a rifle? Standard answer, carbine is short. Well, with Winchester anyway, let me make sure we're getting the right guns here. This is a rifle. You can tell because of the front piece here, and also it does have the rifle buttstock on it. This is carbine. Barrels are the same length. The rifle is a little bit heavier and does have these differences. And honestly, when I bought this one, I thought it was a carbine. So that's why I'm pointing it out today, the differences between a rifle and a carbine. Trapper model carbines. Has anybody ever seen one?
I've heard of them.
Where'd you see one, Troy?
Rock Island.
Yeah. The ones I've seen at the gun shows out west, they are beat all to hell, and they sell for $4,000 a pop. 1930s, the 14, 15-inch barrels, VATF said that's not legal. They grandfathered the existing guns, but Winchester had to stop making them. They have to go with the 16 and 18 inch barrels. They are interesting guns, but like I say, most of them are beat up really bad, and they're really expensive. If you buy one, make sure it's got the proper paperwork with it for you to own it. It's a short barrel rifle. Standard model carbine. Same serial range as the rifles, 20-inch barrel standard, round barrel. Have never seen an octagon barrel carbine. Same calibers as the rifles. Could also order the same special features on them that you could with the rifle. One difference is, a couple people have said that they've seen takedown carbines, but there's none that have been documented to be real. We don't think any of the carbines were takedowns. They were all solid frames. A lot of people will refer to the saddle ring carbine. This is saddle ring. Came standard on them up until the early 20s. After that, they deleted the saddle ring, called them Eastern carbines. You might run across some made before the 20s that do not have a saddle ring. Now, if it's got the hole for the saddle ring and no saddle ring, that just means the ring's missing. But for an extra 50 cents, you could order the gun without the saddle ring, so there will not be a hole there. Also, after they switched over to the Eastern style carbine, you could still order it with the saddle ring. So if you find one that's later production, where you know saddle rings were not standard, it was a special order. It cost an extra 50 cents. Also, the rifles. There are some rifles with the saddle ring on it from the factory. You could order a rifle with a saddle ring. It was mostly on the short rifles. And the short rifles, this one I have here is a 20-inch. That was the most common. According to the books, the ones I see the most are 22 inches of the non-standard. Military and police use. Most people don't think of them as military and police guns, but they were. Adopted by the New York State Police, 1917, here's one right here. NYST, New York State Troopers. You got another one right here, military marked. This one's from 1919. The Army did use these. There was what they called the spruce police, Army Signal Corps, that guarded the spruce trees in the Pacific Northwest during World War I, because spruce was needed for airplane parts, ship parts, and whatever. They carried the Winchesters. Marked U.S., but the spruce police guns will also have the Signal Corps marking on down here. The Canadian Pacific Coast Militia Rangers were doing the same thing on the Canadian side. They will be marked CPCM, I think it is. I don't remember exactly. Some are used strictly by the Canadian military. They will have the Canadian broad arrows on them. There are some with British proof marks. I just recently learned World War I, there was a French contract. I saw it in my Winchester Collector magazine, guy looking for any information people had on the French contract guns. I emailed him and said, what is a French contract? Back, I think he said it was around 1920. Oh, it was earlier than that maybe. French government ordered 15,000 Winchester 94 carbines. Their military used them. Most of those guns then went to the Belgian Congo for military use there. There's one on Gunbroker right now. Starting bid $3,500, buy it now $4,000. They're rare, they're cool, but I don't think it's worth that kind of money.
What caliber?
30.
30.
30-30. The difference with them is that the rear sight is in meters instead of yards, and the French government ordered them with sling swivels. I can't say those words, sling swivels, over here on the left-hand side for some reason. They thought that was easier for the soldiers to carry on their back. This one I have is military mark. Could be fake markings. Don't know. No way to document it. Military outposts used them. Some orders were as few as 5 of the rifles. Military prisons used them. Some military prisons used the .30-30 carbine for executions. Some federal and state prisons used them. I've seen prison guns with markings on them. I've never bought one, I've seen them. And also state militias. The state militia guns will be marked on the buttstock, usually over on this side, with the, whatever the militia designation was. So the Winchester carbines were definitely used, military and police. Oh yeah, that's the New York State Trooper gun, and that's the military marking. World War II. You all probably heard the expression of flat band Winchester. They started making the front barrel band instead of a little kind of roundish. It was flat. Some people told me they thought it was to save metal because of the war effort, but I've also read where Winchester changed the process of how it was made to a little bit cheaper process. During the 1950s, Winchester was making small changes in the guns to cut costs. By 1964, the total production, not just the 94s, but also the 55s and 64s. 55s, there were probably about 20,000. 64s, probably about 80,000. Total production was at 2.7 million. I forgot something that was important. But that's all right. In 64, Winchester totally, remember they were not producing rifles at this point, only carbines. Sales were down. They decided to do a big cost-cutting thing. And because of the lower quality, people in the gun community immediately did not like these guns. I wasn't really around in 64, I was 2 years old, but I think Japan had a reputation for low quality products being sold in this country because people started calling these Japanese Winchesters, saying they were made in Japan. Official response from Japan, from Winchester, seriously, no, they were not made in Japan, they were made in this country. Now, why Winchester used a Japanese spokesperson? That's a joke. The way to tell the difference between pre-64 and post-64, just by glancing at it, pre-64 you've got a little screw right up here. Post-64 it will be flat. Oh yeah, this one. The post-64 totally mean post-64. It's not this one either. It's this one. I got too many Winchesters up here. I was at the Fredericksburg Gun Show a year ago maybe. I think Frank was there, Bruce was there. Guy came by wanting to sell a Winchester. I looked, yep, pre-64, what he wanted. I said, yep, I'll give it to you because it's in good shape. Got it home, looked at it, looked it up. Year of manufacture, 1964. So like I say, pre-64 doesn't really mean 63 and under. It can also mean 64. Then I got looking at my book. Have yet to uncover Model 94s in serial range between 2.59 and a low 270s. This one is almost 2.6. It's right at the It's slightly, it's in the high 2,590,000 range. This is probably one of the last pre-64s that was made. Other cool thing with it, it came with the loophole scope and scope mount. This was called a detacho scope. I think it was made just for these type guns, am I right, Frank?
Yes.
Yeah. They're great to have on a Winchester. They're kind of rare now. But for some reason, there's a gap of about 100,000 guns out there. That's this one I just showed you. Post-1964. The guns, like I say, lower quality. The metal in the receivers was changed to what people called Winchester mystery metal. This, some of them would actually rattle when you shook them. This is one of mine. It's a 44 Magnum. I shoot it fairly often because I've got a lot of components for reloading 44. And I picked the gun up fairly cheap. Like I say, it was made mid-late 60s, I believe. And it shoots pretty good. Only biggest problem with it is, on the last round, I've got to remember to lever it real hard, or else the round will not raise up to where it can be chambered, and then sometimes that doesn't work. I've got to stand there and shake the gun to get the round to get in position to chamber. I could probably get it fixed, but what I do is I just shoot it in the woods all by myself, because I don't want anybody to see me stand there shaking my gun to work. And also, compared to the real old ones, the Model 64 also, that was supposed to have a better action and a better trigger, and it truly does. The trigger on that thing drops as smooth as anything. It's very, very light. This one, you go to chamber around, it kind of sounds like a Army tank backing up. It's sort of a burp, 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 burp. So the post-64, the quality was definitely not there. To make up for the low quality, I guess, they started making a whole bunch of different models. This is a list of this is just a partial list. They also started making a whole bunch of different calibers. They even made a 22 long rifle and 410, which they call the 9410. It's a 410 shotgun. That's a 94. I know we've got at least one commemorative rifle here. The commemoratives are cool. Winchester made a commemorative for everything. Anywhere from 100 of them to 2,000 of them. They made them for occasions. They made them for people, for places. If there was a big hot dog eating contest somewhere, Winchester would make a commemorative of the hot dog eating contest. Anything to sell guns. Yes, sir, Rick?
You have them chambered in 218B.
I don't think so. I don't know. Because of all of these, they made a whole bunch of different chamberings, and I don't mess with the post-64s enough to really know.
I mean, ever.
Not the early, I can't say no because I don't know what calibers they were on.
They may have made 92s
Yeah.
in 218.
That's nothing but a neck down 2520, isn't it?
Yeah, which is the neck down 3220.
Yeah, exactly.
They make any in 5.56?
No, it's a wonder because they made them in every other caliber.
That's why they're keeping so broke.
And the newer guns from, like, I'd say 2000 on up to the end of the production, they were better. Winchester realized they screwed up. So they had to start making some improvements to sell guns, and they did. But mostly they just added a whole bunch of guns. Interesting thing, I said pre-64 is 2.7 million. Since 64 up until they stopped making the Model 94s, 5 million were sold. Twice as many. But they were cheap price, yes sir.
Are all those top eject?
Some of them are called angle eject.
Okay.
which kind of the same thing. No side ejects that I'm aware of.
Question for you, the 444 and the 450, they based that on the big bore 94 action, right? The beefed up rear part of the receiver, is
Oh.
that correct?
The what again?
You remember the big bore 94,
Yep.
75, where they had to beef up the back end of the receiver? Is that what they used for 450 Marlin, 444?
I want to say yes, but I've got one in 450 Marlin, and that gun is just as light as anything else on this table. It is not a heavy gun at all. I haven't shot that sucker.
I think they offered it in standard and XTR. They may have just done the XTR. But if you remember, I don't think it added any weight, but if you just look at the back, the receiver walls, you could see that they were thicker, where the locking lock comes. So,
It probably is. I don't, like I say, I got one, but I got it because I thought it was cool, and I stuck it away, and I haven't really looked at it. But one interesting thing on those, now that you bring it up, earlier I mentioned that the pre-64s, you can tell them by the screw in the front here.
right.
I noticed that 450 I've got has a screw, and I've also got a post 64 and 45 long Colt. It's a trapper model, but it also has a screw. So just because you see one with the screw doesn't mean it's pre-64. It might be one of these other models where they designed it that way. It was, just to make sure everybody, I'm clear on everything. The standard model carbine will not have a screw up here. Post 64.
Okay, George, Bill's got a question.
Is that 22 long rifle second from the bottom?
Yep.
Now, is that a 94 or was that the 94-22?
94-22.
Okay.
It's
So
a 90.
it's totally different.
Well,
And it juts out the side out of a port? 'Cause I have one
yeah,
of those.
it kind of falls in with the 94 group. Yes, sir, Mr. Ziegler.
A serious question now, this is out of ignorance. Why did they originally come out as pistol cartridge carbines and rifles, pistol caliber?
Oh, in 1873?
Yeah, oh yeah, whoops, yeah, that was early on, yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you earlier.
Yeah, in 1873, people loved it because a lot of people carried a gun. They made the rifles in the same caliber as what people were already carrying ammo for.
Okay, well, that makes sense, okay. So
Yep.
they were strong enough for rifle caliber, but it just made sense to go with pistol.
Yeah, the guns were pistol caliber. You could shoot your 44 in your handgun or in your rifle.
Yeah, there is an interesting aside to that, though. Winchester could not, in the 73, could not get that gun to work with 45 Colt ammo because of the very thin, small rim on it. They couldn't get proper extraction.
Right.
And it wasn't until they put the big extractor groove in it that they could use it in other models.
I don't know a whole lot about the other models. Now, didn't the 92 model fire that round just fine?
No.
No.
It did not?
The modern day ones do because modern day Colt ammo, long, not long cut.
Okay, it's the ammo itself, not
Not that
the...
much bigger because my copy Schofield in 45 Colt still doesn't like to eject all the time, but it's enough for the extractor of a, and frankly, the 92 works better with pistol and cartridges than the 94 does anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of had to retro design this 44 Magnum.
Yeah, now my 44 Magnum, like I say, I've shot it a lot. And it works great until you get to the last round and you have to shake it.
Right.
Clayton?
George, so I didn't know if this was exactly the end of your presentation, but
Nope.
what I'm curious, are you going to talk about the Japanese ones?
Hang on.
All right.
No, we already talked about the Japanese ones a little
No, I
bit.
know, the other Japanese ones.
The real Japanese.
Here we go. I think, no, that's my 44 Magnum. Now some of the Magnums, I don't know if you can see it, up here it says MAG. The Magnums were designated MAG up here on the under part of the receiver. If you will look at it later, it's right there. They quit making these around around 2010, somewhere around there.
2006.
2006, okay. They were introduced, correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around 2013. made by Moroku, Japan. Now, Moroku had been making guns for Browning. They were making a lot of them under their own name, shotguns especially, selling them over in the UK and over in Europe. Where's the British guy?
Winchester 101 was made by them.
Huh?
Winchester 101 was made by them.
Yeah, Moroku was making a lot of guns. Moroku was making good guns.
Yeah.
In the Winchester community, these guns are considered different. They're the lever action American iconic. People had a problem with them being made in Japan. The Winchester collectors, hardcore collectors, didn't like it. A lot of the hardcore gun guys didn't like it. It was not well received when it was announced that the Winchester lever actions would be made in Japan. So what happened? Here come the haters. Oh boy, people were saying that's not a Winchester, it's a Japana-chester. Those guns are terrible, all that kind of stuff. Really, they are a very nice gun. Here's one of mine, 94 carbine. This one's got the checkering on it. I think this one with the checkering was only made in 2016. They make special editions. They didn't make any new ones this year, but they make them every once in a while. Action on that thing, it is whisper quiet. Trigger pull, perfect. They shoot perfect. I kind of think, a lot of guys still don't like them. You don't want to go to a Winchester Arms Collectors Association meeting and say, I collect the Winchester Morokus. That would not go over. But they are really good guns. In my opinion, some people say they're reproductions. I don't consider it reproductions. I consider it a continuation of the line. Winchester Company has changed a lot. They've changed management since 1894, at least. They've changed ownership. They've changed the way the guns were made. I think this has gone back to the early days of when the guns were made. And I'm not putting down Winchester employees in the 60s. They were doing what they were told to do. But the craftsmanship was not there like it was in the teens and 20s. Now these guns are made by craftsmen, once again, who take a lot of pride in what they do. They try to make the guns perfect. So I think it's kind of gone full circle. So yep, I buy Morokus, I shoot Morokus, I'm very proud of them.
They're made in Turkey now, right?
They're what?
I think the shotguns are.
They're what?
Shotguns made in Turkey now.
Made in Turkey.
No, not the Winchesters.
Pretty sure.
I think it's the shotguns that are made in Turkey.
Yeah, these guns are still marked made in Japan.
Right.
Yeah, Shannon.
So, I don't know any of these things, but you got me excited now.
Uh-oh.
If I were to go buy one of these to shoot, go get a Moroku,
Moroku, you'll pay $1,200 on up.
really?
They're real.
Right, so what should I get? Something made in the 60s?
Depends on how serious you want to be shooting. Do you want something that's actually going to chamber the round?
All right,
Do you want something that's actually going to hit the target? Moroku.
Moroku, all right.
If you don't mind standing there shaking the gun, pay $500 for one of the 1960s. Some of the ones, the 30-30s made in the 50s, not too bad. Ones made in the 40s, not bad. They might not look great, but they'll probably shoot all right. I'm going to let you shoot some of mine sometime and see what you think. Mr. Crosby.
There's a generalized hate for Morokus because a Browning A5 shotgun was Moroku. The later ones after Belgium, and they are, I have one, they're wonderful. And you have one big advantage over the Browning, over the Belgian one, interchangeable choke tube, so you don't have to buy those expensive hand-fit barrels.
Yeah, yeah, and the fit and finish. The fit and finish, the appearance of Winchesters has always been important. Like I say, they were making them with the short magazine tube because people thought it looked better. Now we're back to guns that look really, really good and shoot really, really good, and yes, sir.
So you said earlier the 32 Special was started in 1902, 1903.
Yeah.
We talked at a show a couple months back, because I have a 32 Special that I think is 1962, but you told me that it's never... Was it 62?
I took the liberty.
Oh, whatever, somewhere around 364. And you said it never really caught on.
Yeah.
They made it from 02 to all the way up into through the 60s, or maybe later?
I'd have to look in my book again to see when it was discontinued. I'll look it up for you when I get done, but it just never caught on like the 30-30 did.
But But it seems like they've made it for a long time.
Let me double check the dates in my book. Clayton?
So, just a couple of things. One, talking about prices on Winchesters, I was in Tulsa in November, the Wanamaker show, and we're looking for a friend of mine for a pre-64, and we're finding lots of, like, for example, 1948, 49 vintages. I think we ended up picking up a 49 for somewhere around $800, and they seem to be a lot in that range. But that's at
The carbines, yes.
and they also have a lot of those kind of guns there relative to other gun shows. So that's one thing. And then also, I don't have a 94 myself, but I do have a Winchester 95 that's a Moroku 30-06. And that is a really nice gun. I don't care where it's made. I mean, it is nice quality. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yep.
You know. And then the other one, the last thing is, you know, these Moroku 94s, the only time I ever see them is when I go to the NRA meetings and Winchester happens to have their vendor booth there and they have the ones you can pick up and examine. That's the only time I ever see these. I've never seen them at retail around here.
Because they sell right away. Whenever a dealer gets them, they're gone.
You know.
People want these things. I don't know if they're holding down production to keep prices up, or if they just can't produce enough to meet demand because the factory's only so big and they got all these other contracts.
But you know, it's just, you know, this problem Winchester was having back in, like, following 2006 because of their labor issues and things like that. Colt, you know, has been dealing with the same, they're in the same general area of the country, whether that has anything to do with it, I don't know. But you know, it's only by the grace of God that Colt has somehow managed to survive. Now they're under CZ ownership.
They got bought by CZ
You know,
and they're
but
30%
but they seem to be making a renaissance of sorts.
Yeah. Right.
George, why the big change in 1964? Was it mainly economic decisions?
Yep. Had to cut costs. They weren't selling enough guns, and they decided, let's make them out of mystery metal and make them crappy, and people will never know the difference.
Well, they
Didn't work out.
moved then too, right?
No,
Uh-uh.
no, they were in New Haven, Connecticut the
still
whole
were?
time, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was reading a little bit up this while you were talking. The bottom line is there were things like, instead of forging receivers, they went to a cheaper manufacturing method, including stamped metal, sheet metal in some cases, parts of screws, bolts, things like that. Some of that got cheapened a bit. This is what leads to the allegation of poor quality.
Yep.
And it wasn't only the 94, the set model 70,
Yeah.
the 1200, and the 1200.
I just brought up the 94s because that's specifically what I'm doing here, but yeah, the quality of it. And I better finish real quick. Values on Winchester. There is a standard catalog of Winchester firearms. It's all the guns, and it's okay guidebook. The standard catalog of firearms. When you look at that, at the early Winchesters, it will list the standard rifle, the sporting rifle, deluxe rifle, and it will say somewhere in there, add 20% for takedown model. Where it gets hard is, where'd that sucker go? Oh, right here. It doesn't, you can't find anything about how much do you add if it's half round, half octagon. How much do you add if you've got the special feature here, a shorter magazine tube? Something else on the magazine tubes, the ones called the 2/3, which are longer, they're hard to find because they didn't work very well because the magazine tube came way out here and it was unsupported. I've seen some where it was kind of welded back in place because somebody broke it off. So be careful if you see any of those. The sights, you could order a whole bunch of different sights, but it's hard to tell the value of the sights. Now, of course, the condition of the gun, you're a manufacturer, all those things come into play. But a gun with a bunch of special features on it, there is no guide for the value which you should pay for it. I just kind of guess at it. It depends on how much money I've got in my pocket at the time. If I want it and it's kind of reasonably right, I'll go ahead and buy it. Sling swivels, I think these are factory, I don't know, but they're worth a little bit extra money. How much is always a big question. The Post 64s, they're in the books. The prices shown in the books are lower than what the guns I'm seeing sell for now. Oh, the 44 Magnum, the reason I got a lot of times you can pick them up cheap and the gun's almost brand new. because people buy them and then buy the factory 44 Magnums, which are really, really hot, shoot a half a box of ammo out of it, their shoulder hurts, they say to hell with it, and they sell the gun to buy something else. So I've actually got several of the 44s because I got them that way, but since I love them, I just load them light and shoot all day with them. Winchester Arms Collectors Association, Waco. Quarterly magazine, I've got one up here if anybody wants to see it. They have the annual Cody Show, which is a gun show, 330 tables. They have what they call the Eastern Show, that takes place somewhere up in New England. I don't remember where, but the last few years it's been the same weekend as the VGCA gun show. And of course my first priority is to you guys, so I'm not going to skip a VGCA show to go to a Waco show.
Sacrifice.
Midwest show at OGCA, Mark and I went to that last fall. Las Vegas Antique Arms Show. There's a whole bunch of Winchesters, Winchester people, Winchester recruiting table, Winchester displays, Winchester, everything is there. They always have a big presence at the NRA annual meetings. I like it because most of the guys are nice, and when they find out which you collect, you know, I'll make sure I tell them I collect the 1894s, not the Morocco's, don't mention those. But they introduce me to other 1894 people who know more than I am, so I can hang out with them and learn. If anybody wants to go to the Cody Firearms Museum, the Cody Firearms Museum at the Las Vegas Antique Arms Show gave me these to give out here. You get 2 free admission and a 20-round Gatling gun chute. So if anybody wants one, it's here. If anybody wants to join the Winchester Arms Collectors, I've got the forms here. If anybody wants to see a trifold on WACA, it's right here. It is a great organization, if you're into Winchesters. And it's not just lever actions, it's shotguns, everything else.
Do you know if people in Winchester M1s can join as well?
Oh yeah, Winchester.
Never shot a 45-70 Gatling gun, it is class.
Take that, you get 20 free rounds. I can't remember if, I know at the Las Vegas Antique Arms Show, the guy who won first place, Rick, didn't he have Winchester, it was some kind of military rifles he had, that his display took first place. Was that the Winchester military shotguns or the M1s? Do you remember?
It could be what, the 1890?
It was, I don't remember, it was some kind of Winchester military gun, but he won first place overall. Sam?
I'm going to put the plug in before you change the picture there. If you ever get a chance to go to the Cody Firearms Museum, Cody, Wyoming, go there. Go there. It's near Yellowstone. It's probably an hour and a half trip over from Yellowstone. Talk your wife into going over there for the day. It is the best firearms museum I've ever been to. They have entire collections, like Rick displayed the 53. No matter what it is you collect there, there'll be a showcase full of that particular weapon. And they have some antique weapons that are just beyond comparison. You spend the whole day there.
Mark's been there, and you said spend like 5 days, didn't you, Mark, when you go?
Yep.
Yeah, well worth the trip.
If you get tired of it, go downstairs. They have a basement part to let you into, and they have drawers you can pull out with glass tops on them and look at all the stuff that you wondered about that wasn't upstairs.
I think that was, oh no. Okay, we're always looking for people to do displays at our VGCA gun shows and also presentations. So I didn't get too deep into any of this stuff, but there's a lot of material here where anybody wants to could do a presentation on the 1894 rifles only, pre-64 carbines, post-64 carbines, 2 different things. Presentation could be done on each of those. Engineering changes, pretty interesting for those of you into the engineering stuff. The bluing processes. As I was reading about the Winchester bluing processes, that's something I would really like to see somebody do a presentation on who really understands that stuff. And not just specific to Winchester, but the bluing process used back in the day overall. Markings changed on these things over the years big time. The options, I touched on the options, but I didn't get real deep into any of them. The engraving, there's some beautiful engraving. If anybody wants to do a presentation, or if anybody's got a bunch of $20,000 engraved guns that want to do a display on at our VGCA show, we would very much welcome it, correct, Andrew? Yep. Yep, that's all I got. Does anybody have any questions? Brian?
So George, how many Winchester 1894s do you have, and which one is the most unique of your whole collection?
How many I have? Does the 55 and 64 count as 94? They were sibling models.
You're the expert, you tell us.
I would say yes, because they are sibling models, and they were all the serial number range. But I still can't answer your question. It's over 50, I know that. The one I like the best is the one with this pistol grip and the half. Honestly, I'm thinking about sending this to Turnbull for restoration, because it's cool, I think. The one I like the best, though, probably Morocco. It's just so smooth to shoot. High quality. I'll say the 64s, if y'all want to mess with this and feel the trigger on it, this trigger, it's feather light, it just drops. If you want a good shooting gun, Shannon, you might want to look at the 64s if you can find one at a good price.
All right.
So, I can't answer your question, I don't know. Oh, maybe I like my New York State Trooper the best.
You do like police marks?
You're Indian?
Yeah, because I do collect marked stuff, so that would fit right in. Or a military mark.
You like them all.
Yeah, like them all.
He can't decide.
Interesting story on the military mark. And it was either Mesa or Phoenix gun show. Talking to a dealer I talked to before, he had it marked as a spruce gun. I looked at it, I said, that's not a spruce gun. It's outside the serial number range, and it doesn't have the signal core. And he was asking $2,000 some dollars. What's your right for a spruce gun? He said, you know, you're right. He said, you want it? I said, not at that price. He said, what do you think? I said, well, I think it was one of the later models. I looked it up and made it in 2019. Not 2019, 1919. So it was after World War I, but it was probably one of the military outposts or something. We got talking. I said, you know, you don't even know. It might be a fake marking. He said, well, tell you the truth, I got it cheap at auction. He said, how much would it be worth if it did not have that mark on it? And he agreed on the value there. He said, how about you give me $200 over that. If it's a real deal, you get a good deal. If it's not a real good deal, you're getting $200. I said, okay. So that's how it came with the one, came to have the one with the military mark. They're fun to run around the country collecting.
Jordan, question?
Yes, sir.
Me or him?
You.
If you want an example of what a post-64 gun looks like after it's been worn a little bit, I've got mine right there.
Okay.
That finish does not hold up well in the slightest. That gun was made in 67 or 68. It looks like it's 100 years older than that.
Something else I've noticed on some of my post 64s, they rust real easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That shoots fine.
I had one that I had not shot, had not done anything with, and it was sitting in a rack with some of my real early stuff, and I looked and it had a whole bunch of rust on it down in here. I thought, oh no, what in the world's going on with guns? My old guns didn't have any rust on them. Post 64 had rust on it. Finish or
One of the
whatever.
problems with the post 64 was that slithered iron frame. At first, it wouldn't hold what they called fluid. The frame's flaked off.
You're talking pre-64. The old ones.
Post 64. Post 64.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quality.
There wasn't technically a bluing, I think.
But the real Achilles heel in the post 64 is the cartridge holder. There's a thing when you on the front that pushes the shell back in that didn't come up. It's cast and it'll break off. If you shoot this Pro 64 a lot and you're doing fast, eventually you're going to have to repair that.
That's why I'm afraid I'm going to break my 44 mag. Well, I got 3 or 4.
No, the Maruku is made steel.
No, well, made in the 60s, 44 mag. 60s or 70s.
Oh, I thought that was the Maruku.
No, don't. This is one you got to shake to get the right rounding position in the chamber. No, the Maroka, they're perfect.
Well, maybe they fixed it by then, I don't know. But, yeah, and it's a difficult thing to repair. what you have to do is mill that out and put a piece of steel in there, not the cast crap.
One thing I would recommend if anybody's thinking about collecting Winchesters, as you can see, there's a whole lot of different things. Learn about one specific thing. And when you go to gun shows, when I go to gun shows, I carry the Winchester Model 94 book with me because some have been altered. I need that book. Where'd I put that thingy? Oh, short rifle. Is it correct or did somebody cut it down? I use that book to tell me the exact dimensions of how far back the front sight should be and exactly where this sight would be. Do all the measurements before I buy it. Not after I get home and realize I got burned. But it's good to really study up on one specific type first. Or just go with Marukus. Other questions? Yes, sir.
On the early ones, did they ever offer them in black powder, or are they all smokeless, the cartridges?
No, these were designed around the smokeless cartridges. Yeah. Somebody might well correct me on this. I think they really wanted to start using the 30-30 caliber first year of production, but there were some problems with the 30-30 cartridges themselves, and they didn't want to release something that was going to be a failure. So they held back 2 years on releasing them in that caliber until they got the cartridge ready.
Actually, I think if I remember reading correctly, the 25-35 predated it by about 3-4 months. They actually released that before the 38 WCF, which is kind of a little that I've seen that a couple of different sources. But they came out essentially at the same time, but for some reason the 25-35 beat it to it.
Yeah.
So
they wanted to make sure everything was right before they put it on the market.
Which one's your favorite?
Oh, that's what Brian Pelton asked me.
Oh, sorry.
But I thought he said which one was to be fair, I did say the most unique.
The most unique?
Oh, okay, most unique. Matthew, it depends on what I'm going to do with it. If I'm going to be throwing it in the back of a pickup truck and I don't care if it gets beat up, I just want to go shoot. This is my favorite because I don't care what happens to it. It's the Post 94. For impressing the women, my favorite is the Moroku because it looks really good and it shoots really good. Otherwise, I'm back to the one with the pistol gripstock. I just like pistol gripstocks. I like the half round, half octagon, and I like the half magazine too. But also, if y'all get a chance when we're done, take a look at this one. This is kind of one of my favorites too because of the way it looks. The coloring on it, Jim saw it earlier. It's unique, I'll say that. Takedown, and it looks great. This one was made maybe 1920. Looks great, and I don't think it's refinished. So, but you're welcome to take a look at it. I just had the please do not touch or handle up here because I need to keep them in somewhat of an order for doing my presentation. I will be digging around for the right gun. But now you can look at them. Any other questions? I guess we're done.
All right, let's take a short break. We'll come back at 9:05 and do the show and tell.